This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, and this is your host, DJ Python Hyena, and this is your film and music show, and we have a wonderful show lined up for you tonight. Any of you that have listened to me for a long time, you know that I don't just review the mainstream films. I love to talk about cult films and anything especially that I grew up with, and we're going to be examining a film that I discovered just in the late 90s, and that is a film I've spoken of before on here called Ms. 45. And we're going to pay a little tribute to not just that film, but the film's leading lady, the late Zoe Tamerlis Lund. And I have the pleasure tonight to have Robert Lund on the phone. You two were still married, is that right?
Yes, actually, legally we were. She left New York in '97, went to Paris with a guy, and she wanted a divorce, I suppose, but we never got around to that paperwork. So I guess, yeah, we remained married for the 2 more years she lived in Paris. That's
Okay.
true.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't want to get my information wrong on here, but I just want to give you a little background to how I discovered the film. And for my listeners, is that I don't think we ever had Ms. 45 to rent anywhere here in Fredericton. And we just lost our last video store. I think Netflix is pretty much killing the business there, but I remember I went to Blockbusters and I rented a video called Terror in the Aisles, and it was hosted by the late, great Donald Pleasance of Halloween and Nancy Allen of Dressed to Kill. And they had divided up into sections like, the Hitchcock section and the slasher section and whatnot. And they came towards the second half of it and they were talking about horror films and sex. And they showed clips like from Dress to Kill, Cat People, Clute, and they showed clips from Ms. 45. And I remember they showed the scene where Zoe, who plays a mute seamstress in the film, Thana, is walking down through, I guess it's Grand Central Park, I think it is.
Central Park, yeah, that's by the Bethesda Fountain there, that place where that violent choreography took place.
And I thought the scene was so well done, and they all go around her, and she walks right to that center circle, and she blows them all away. And they showed other clips from the film, and I just wanted to find out. Number one, I was smitten with her. I thought she was beautiful, and I thought, what is this film? So I wrote down all the names of the films I hadn't seen that was at the end of the movie. And I didn't have a computer at the time, so I went to the library and looked at old film review books. And finally, I don't know what review it was, but I read a couple of them that tagged that film with a couple of those scenes. And I ended up ordering the film before I'd even seen it all the way through. I wanted to see it that badly, and I loved the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gripping, yes.
It's better. I think it's better than Death Wish, personally.
Yeah, I think so. We have a much more sympathetic character, and he goes through a more unexpected transformation, I suppose you might say.
Yeah. Well, I just saw Death.
It's gotten more popular lately because of last year. Well, it was in 2013, I guess, that Alamo Drafthouse Films decided to release it again on DVD. And they went and made a new transfer from the original negative. So all people have seen for years are, VHSs and tapes made from the original prints. But when you go to the original negative and transfer to a modern digital format, the modern version that's available now is brilliant. It's much brighter, and it's much more vivid. It's great to watch.
I actually think the Blu-ray version is even better than the DVD. It's like everything shows up. It's gorgeously detailed.
Yeah, Blu-ray has higher resolution, so that would look even more crisp.
And I love the fact that I love the fact they put some extras on it and stuff. And
right, the 2 short films came along with that. The 2 short interviews, I believe.
Yes, they did.
They include on the DVD. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the one you did when you're in the car.
Yes.
Yeah, they have that on there, and they got Abel Ferreira and Nicholas St. John. I think both are interviewed on it, and
Oh, yes, they were too, right. Hmm.
yeah, and her mom was on there
Yeah,
talking. Yeah,
right. Her mother, Barbara.
yeah,
We interviewed her in 2009 in her studio there, and she just reflecting on her daughter.
yeah. So here's a question I have out of curiosity, because you two got married in the mid '80s, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. This is one question I have. Can you tell me? You probably can. The exact moment when you first saw her, and how does one approach a woman like this to, ask her out or connect with, or even breach a conversation, or did she approach you?
Oh, no. Well, okay, here's that story. I was out in the club with another friend, a guy named Willoughby Sharp. He was a promoter, artist. He had galleries. He had a cable show called Downtown New York. And so I was at a screening of his cable show at some bar, and he said, "Oh, we must go to this other bar. There's this couple who just returned from Paris. You must meet them." So he was referring to Zoe Tamerlis, and her boyfriend at the time was an older man, Edouard de Laurent. So we went to another bar, and we arrived at the bar, and Zoe was sitting on a bar stool, and I'm not remembering it precisely, but the way I recall it, she was sitting there holding out her extended arm with a long cigarette, and several men, with their hand just about to grab their lighters. She was basically holding court at the bar, and several young gentlemen were around her, panting. I came in, and so she was occupied. I spoke to Edward. I actually made friends with her older mate there that evening, and didn't really speak to her. She was the interesting girlfriend of this interesting old guy. Then a couple of months later, the same Willoughby Sharp had a party where he was interviewing people for his downtown cable show. And he was going to interview me, talk about video technology, and he was going to interview this person, Zoe. And Edouard, the boyfriend, wasn't there, and we were at this party together. And, as you say, I was somewhat taken, and I was too taken to actually speak to her. I didn't really make contact that night either. I just thought, she's going home to her boyfriend, and I was just, we spoke, and there was nothing much going on. When I did finally meet her was on New Year's Day. Then later, I went to a party at some people's house, and it turned out she was having an affair with another man. She was the relationship with Edward was on the way out. In fact, by New Year, she had moved out, and some other guy about my age had brought her to this party. Now, I was approximately 40 at the time, and this was a party of my contemporaries, 40-year-olds. And he had brought this 23-year-old girl to the party and told her, don't tell anyone you're with me. He told her that, you can come to the party, but pretend you're not with me. Nice guy. So I wound up hanging out with her at this party. And, you go to the milk bar. So we agreed to meet in bars, where we used to go hanging out. In the 80s, people, I don't know if it's still the same, but it's not when I'm older too. But in the 80s, you'd go out to a bar, hang out with the scene, and then you'd finish up there. Okay, where are we going now? Where are we going now? You'd go around. At 4 a.m., the bar would close. Okay, where's the party moving now? And we go to an after-hours bar, and you go home after the sun comes up. It was that kind of lifestyle then. So, we started hanging out in the club scene there, different New York clubs. So it took 3 meetings before I spoke to her, and then we started hanging out and dating, you might say.
Were you nervous?
No. I mean, it's not like I was nervous, like I would, it was hooking up kind of stuff, nervous. No, I mean, we clicked at the party where she was told to pretend you're not with me. Yeah. We kind of, I don't know, she was showing she came across more like a kid, you know. I recall one of the things we had fun with, someone had a coffee table book with an index of police codes, you know. And so the kind of thing, okay, let's speak in police codes. So we sort of fooled around, but, you know, we're basically acting like a couple of teenagers, you know. It was just, you know, and then she went with the other guy home again, you know, from the party and all. But, yeah, it wasn't like, I wasn't nervous. We were having fun. It was just, we kind of fell into it. And we liked it. I guess I took her to a movie. We went to see Brazil.
Oh, great movie.
And I thought, you know, I'll impress my new girlfriend. I had a good acid connection, so I hope I could say yes. So we took some LSD and went to see Brazil.
Oh, that's a good movie to watch for Brazil.
It was a lovely first date, you know. Yeah.
Oh,
that
Brazil's
before.
great.
See, I had a couple of precious months with her. In the first 2 months, there was no heroin around. She was looking for it. I think she was going and doing it whenever she could get it, but we weren't living together, and I had no interest in it, you know. So from meeting her in New Year's Day until like around the middle of March, when she moved in, you know, dragging her 30-gallon trash bags behind her, that she had moved out from Edouard and she was staying with some friends. And yeah, she pretty much convinced me that all this anti-heroin talk is drug war propaganda, you know. And I was just kind of naive. I hadn't known any junkies. I was just stayed away from it. I didn't want to know about needles. She had friends who would shoot, and I didn't want them in my house, you know. But, you know, I fell in love, and I listened to her, and it sounded good. And I had just stopped doing cocaine for years because that was a waste. I just stopped. I said, you know, I put coke behind me. Then she talked me into heroin. You know, you don't just fool around with this, she says. You know, it's more like a commitment. You have to learn to listen to its song, was her phrase, you know. And so I felt like, well, gee, if I'm doing this heroin and I'm not getting it, you know, I felt a little intimidated, like, what's wrong with me? So, you know, you just practice, you'll develop a taste. Well, when you do it for a while, you not only develop a taste, you know, you develop that addiction that you can't stop anymore. So yeah, I sort of got lured into that. She just worshipped it, you know. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm reading right now the Artie Lange Crash and Burn book, and he talks about how he had trouble getting out of that lifestyle as well. So it's a real,
She painted such an idyllic picture of it. She had a way with words and those long, slender fingers graceful in the air as she spoke, and it was just, you know, I should have known better, but I didn't have personal experience with anyone. No one ever said, if you do this, there's no turning back. It was, you know, she said, oh, you know, you do it addicted for a while, and then we take a weekend off and we kick our habit down. You know, you're regulated. Yeah, right. It didn't work out that way. But
doesn't work that way.
I got on the heroin tangent just because of our first date when we still had good old LSD, but all other substances were laid aside. You know, once, heroin, it's all you need. It's all you want. So there was that.
When you first met her, did you know that she had done Ms. 45?
Yeah, people said, I had never seen Miss 45. I was unfamiliar with the film. When I met her, during that first month of January, on the newsstands in New York, there was a weekly magazine called ZAT, Z-A-T.
Okay.
And issue number 5, I believe, was on the newsstands with her face on the cover. So here I was walking around with this new girlfriend, and her face was on the cover of the mag on the Lower East Side magazine stands, you know. And so that's where I read about it, and I knew that she had done it. And we'd go to the clubs, you know, and she was known. So the doorman would, oh, Zoe, Miss 45, come. She was kind of known as Miss 45 in the scene, you know, in New York. That was her claim to fame. So I guess shortly after I met her, Yeah, I had we watched a cassette of it, but I didn't see it on the big screen until after she was dead, and they did a retrospective at New York's Anthology Film Archives. I went with her mother, Barbara, and we saw Ms. 45 and Bad Lieutenant in one evening there. But before that, I only saw it on tape, after we lived together.
Yeah, had the opportunity to see it on the big screen myself, and really loved it. My co-host couldn't be here tonight, but he remembered one of the things he loved about it. I introduced him to the film actually, and so he loved the little gestures she would do, like with her fingers, like for example when she's told to tell Lori that the boss wants to talk to her, and she does that little gesture with her hands, and he said he loved little things like that.
You notice that?
Yeah.
That's incredible. In the whole film, you point to that because that scene, when we would see the film, oh, you see, she pointed out, you see, you could see I was doing heroin. You see the heroin in my fingers. She said, because she would do this little graceful, it was like she unfurled her fingers kind of. And that's the way she spoke when she spoke about heroin or something like that. But that scene where she comes out and she tells her coworker, what's his name, wants to see you, and she does that little flip of her finger. She would point to that scene when we saw it and tell me, you see, like she loved standing around, like in the scene we'd stand around in a club, and she loved looking around and seeing signs of heroin use among people. Oh, you see, he must be high. Oh, he must be. She's pointing out, trying to detect it. And so when she saw that particular scene, she would always point to her finger motion, say you could see, yeah, I was high because So, the fact that you noticed that gesture, yeah, it has its own life, I guess. I didn't realize anyone else would actually pick that out, but yeah, that was her favorite finger gesture as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I watched it with my co-host, and like I say, he couldn't be here tonight, but I remember when we were watching it, he pointed that out. He said, I made the character a little more broader and whatnot, and I thought it's interesting you have that little story behind it.
Yeah, I think that's when she got involved with those people making Miss 45. I think that's just about when she started doing heroin. She was among the many other fabrications that she laid on me when we were married during the whole 11 years. The official story was she started doing heroin when she was 14. She told me this.
Okay.
So, and then after she did, I managed to find an old boyfriend that she lived with back in 78. When she was 78, she would be 16, 17. Right, so they lived together. So I spent time with him and asked him about this. And he was absolutely certain. He was with her every minute of the day. They were in college together. He says there's absolutely no way that she could have been doing heroin at all when they were together, but that when she started going to shoot Miss 45, he noticed a change in her. And so it's probably then that she started getting into it. And, I imagine, I think she was just sniffing at first. We only sniffed the whole first year. I wouldn't entertain the thought of a needle in my house. And after, on a New Year's Eve, I tried it. Of course, once you're addicted and you get used to it, you get your dose and you sniff it and you feel wonderful in 5 or 10 minutes, that's life. And then against my better judgment, but just for New Year's Eve, I tried this needle, but I was already addicted, so I knew the process of need and relief. So I did the needle, and, 10 seconds later, oh, I see, I never sniffed again because, it's like I'd found the switch because you put that in your arm and then 10 seconds you're feeling incredible instead of you eliminate the wait period, But she was, I imagine she probably started out just sniffing back then, a 17-year-old girl. I don't know. I have no way of knowing, but she apparently was doing it during the shooting of that film.
Wow. Did she ever relay how she got that role?
Well, yeah. There was a film called Times Square and being cast at that time. and she had gone to that casting. I don't know if it was for extras or for what, but somebody had recommended she go there. So she went to that, and she didn't get in. But someone saw her. A friend of Abel's saw her at that thing, and thought she'd be good, and recommended, gave her Abel's contact info. Now, Abel often told the story. He had pretty much given up trying to find a Miss 45. He was just interviewing girls, and they all stunk, you know. So he tells the story. He had a loft on 18th Street. When she came up the elevator, and he opened the door, and he saw her down the hall come out of the elevator, he just, like, his jaw dropped, and he just said, "Oh, my God, this is Miss 45." That's what he says. Now, I suppose she came out of that elevator looking much like Miss 45, because he just picked her out, and, you know, she didn't have to speak. All she had to do was act like someone who was battered and had been raped. And as I mentioned, she had been raped the year before, but put the whole incident away in her mind. And I suspect there must have been unresolved, I don't know, maybe some unresolved anger. She makes excuses for the guy who raped her. Well, he didn't know because I was so drunk I didn't say no. But, you know, I mean, she knew better.
Yes.
So, yeah, she was working things out as she was acting that role, which I'm sure improved her performance in her first movie role ever, you know. She had a lot to give to that role.
Yeah, I want to thank you for that email. That was pretty heavy stuff to relate to me, but I appreciate you sending that to me. And I was pretty shocked that she had that incident back in '78. I would have been 6 years old. Like, she's 10 years older than me. So I was like, wow.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Yeah, she was 16. And, you know, it wasn't a violent rape, but, you know, getting drunk at a party and waking up in the morning and finding out you're no longer a virgin, that's, you know, they call that rape. They did then and they do now, you know, especially when it's, you're 16 and it's your teacher. So, yeah.
Well, I'll say something, and I've heard rape victims say this, but your virginity is something that you give away. Somebody can't just take it, and I get what you're saying, but you know, it's kind of like it's like yours to give, and yeah, and I know they talk about the hymen stuff and stuff being broke and whatnot, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you give. I mean, normally you would give it. But if it's given away in your sleep, well, I guess you could say someone took it. Because, I mean, you know, she writes in that diary, I wonder if the kids at school can tell I'm no longer a virgin. No, of course, that's silly. You know, but that thought passes through my, do I look different? You know, I mean, so, see, she self-identified as no longer a virgin. That's a very popular term these days. But, yeah, I would say, that's what she said. You know, this is what she wrote in her diary. I have no reason to believe that she was fabricating it. It's full of lots of other, you know, diary types. She kept diaries for years. I have the ones from her earlier years where she fills pages with the activities of her guinea pigs every day. She was a writer and she documented her life.
Yeah. I gotta say though, if the teacher that raped her, if he saw Miss 45, it's almost kind of like when she gets raped twice in the first 10 minutes of the movie. It's almost like like a cobra spreading its hood in his face. Like, yeah.
It's funny you should mention it. It never crossed my mind that this guy, I don't know, he was, you know, a teacher up in Massachusetts back in '78, and this film comes out. Her name was, I don't know if it would have entered his world, but if he had ever seen that film, I wish he had seen that film, because he should have seen the barrel of that gun a few times.
Yes.
You know, I just wonder, I probably, if he had ever seen that film and what effect it might have had on him. And I've toyed with the idea of trying to locate this person and sending him the diary writings, you know, just, you know, at this late point in life, here's the effect you had on this young girl. You know, I don't want to, you know, get him in trouble or anything. We're not going to pull some of this Polanski crap with him, oh, we're going to go after you for some crime 40 years ago. I mean, it's not about that. But, yeah, it would be interesting if he knew the effects of his action.
Like, even with the rape scenes, the fact that she would do those 2 scenes after this, like, even that would have to fill him with at least a little bit of paranoia, a little bit, like she's doing this after, it makes her a little stronger in a way,
Well, yeah. I mean, she exhibits a certain kind of strength in dealing with this and not talking to anybody and just putting, rationalizing his action. Well, I was so drunk I didn't say no, so it's not his fault. I mean, that kind of stuff.
It is his fault.
Make excuses, of course, but she had to make excuses at the time to justify not pursuing it. She just insisted she wasn't going to be one of those weak women who whimpered and cried as though she was vulnerable. Yeah. So there was that then. And that first, the one who rapes her on the garbage cans,
Abel Ferreira,
in the alley, that was him. You know that?
Yeah, Jimmy Lane, Abel Ferreira, yeah.
Jimmy Lane, right? Yeah.
Him and that bushy hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I had have done that movie. I might have done kind of. I might have had her survive at the end of it there, like have kind of like a Halloween Michael Myers where they don't see, like they turn her body's not at the climatic scene, and have her like somehow, some way, kind of like a Taxi Driver situation where she sees him and follows him and kind of has it out with him and like with the shooting. I might have done that. Because I was always annoyed with Death Wish whenever Charles Bronson, he never got the guys that killed his wife and attacked his daughter. And it's like, it always bugged me,
Oh, right. It's all this vicarious revenge, kind of misplaced. It's generic rage, but he doesn't get the actual original perks. Huh?
Yeah, I like, and of course she killed her second attacker, who was played by Peter Yellen, and got him good.
Yeah, the iron, left him in pieces. Yeah, there were great scenes. And that one in the park where the guy takes the gun and kills himself. Right?
Oh, I love that scene.
That's such a,
That guy was terrific too,
Yeah.
Yeah, like I noticed on that second night, things go different for her because, there's the Asian fella with his girlfriend and, he managed to get in his apartment, she doesn't get to shoot him. And this guy, of course, he seems to be doing okay until he mentions his ex-wife cheating with another woman and then he strangles her cat. Up until that point, I'm wondering if she would have shot him. And he ended up shooting himself.
Yeah. And I thought it was a nice touch in that at the end we see the dog come back to the apartment. It was a little bit of relief that she actually didn't kill the dog when she had him down by the waterfront there,
Yeah.
Because we thought she was going to off the little dog, and that really put her over the edge. I mean, you can kill all these men, but you got to kill the little doggy. So everybody was happy when the little dog comes back at the end. Oh, all right. At least she didn't kill the dog.
It's interesting you mentioned the dog because I think it's is it Anita Sherman who plays the landlady? She lived to be 100 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I found that out the other week.
Really? Yeah, she's pretty frisky in there. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, she's gone, and Albert Singhes, who plays the boss, I really liked his performance, the accent he had. He's gone, I guess, too.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
Yeah, I liked his. I'm going to tell you one scene I really loved is when he wants Zoe to go to the Halloween party, and she goes, "Would you like to go with me?" And she gives that stare at him, and he has no idea what he's in for. And I have to say that is sexy.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. She told me that up until then, she had always felt like an awkward goofy kid. She had glasses. She didn't fit in. She, like her mother said, she wanted to be Belle of the Ball, but it didn't work out, and you could see the childhood pictures. She was not a bad-looking child, but, her self-image was low. And then she said during the shooting of Miss 45, she realized that she could have an effect on how people perceive her by putting things on her face. So she did a film and she learned about makeup. And, those scenes where she's putting the lipstick on and kissing the bullets and all, that was her basic training for the rest of her life. Because, she was always made up and very, very photogenic all the time,
Like even in that scene where they're watching the couple having sex across the way there, and the boss, Singies, looks up at her, and she's like, it's kind of frightening, that look she gives. It's sexy, but at the same token, he has no idea what she's really thinking. It's like,
well, I don't either. We can't be certain, but we can guess.
Yeah. But it's interesting you point the bullet scene. That was a nice homage to Taxi Driver, where she's not firing the gun, but they have...
Yes.
Yeah.
Shooting in the mirror like he does. Right, of course.
Yep, and there was references to Polanski's Repulsion there, where she's in the washroom and she's opening up her robe, and you see the appearance of Abel Ferrara in his hand there. Yeah. That happens with Catherine Deneuve in Repulsion as well.
That's right. The flashes, right? The nightmare flashes.
Yeah, I love those little quiet scenes like that in the movie. And did she get along well with the rest of the cast, or do you know, or did she say?
I have no idea. No, that was years before my time. I don't know. I was around for Bad Lieutenant, but not for Miss 45.
We'll get to Bad Lieutenant in just a minute, but I know when people aren't talking about Zoe Lund, they're talking about Darlene Stato, who played Laurie. She had that sharp tongue.
Which one?
Darlene Stato. You remember when they're at the restaurant? She's the one that tells the photographer to.
That one. Yeah, I don't know the actress's name, but yeah, the sharp one.
Yeah. And I like some of the fellas, like S. Edward Singer, who played the photographer. I thought it was a nice small role for him, but he kind of looked like Howard Stern. The hair and the glasses.
The photographer who brings him up to his flat, you mean?
Yeah.
Picks her up at the restaurant. Yeah. The very, very believable creep. Yes.
Yeah, I always liked that scene. But was there any particular scenes that she enjoyed in that movie best?
Enjoy the scenes. Yeah. No, I don't really. No scene stands out. No, that got mentioned. No, I think the whole thing. That first shot in the alley. Where the guy's chasing her with the, hey, you dropped your bag, and he runs in the alley.
Oh, the guy looks like a guy from Grease.
Yeah, the greaser. Right? Hey, you dropped your bag. So he's running after her, and that's her first time. He's the first one she kills. The first one she shoots. And that look at her face, she often pointed that out, like the realization of the profound nature of the power you have in your hands, where she just squeezed the finger and the guy drops to the ground. She liked that moment there of discovery where it opened the door, to the future rampage. So, yeah, she pointed out that scene a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love, of course, the climatic scene at the Halloween party. I love the slow motion and,
the slow-mo really worked.
Yeah, the lighting and stuff, that was all great. And, of course, you actually get to hear her. She says something at the end. Did she say Thana?
At the end, she says sister.
Oh, sister.
She manages to squeeze out the word sister at the end. Where she saw it's her dear friend who stabbed her. So she goes, sister, and boom, and doesn't shoot her. Yeah.
Wow, and that was interesting too. That it was,
Yeah.
yeah,
And after this film came out here in New York and wherever else it did, she and Edward, they had a mobile home. He had a mobile home camper type of thing. They traveled around the country attending screenings where she would speak. I saw, I passed the theater in L.A., but I have a picture of her outside the theater. But she would, they would say live, Miss 45 in person,
I saw
and they
that
would screen the
picture.
film, and she would get up and talk. And as she says in some of her comments in that The Ship with Eight Sails, that essay that she wrote, where she speaks of Miss 45, it's not about women's rights, women's power, it's not about garment work, it's just about oppression in general. She managed to speak about Miss 45 in the context of her political leanings. In fact, she's decided to stay with movies as opposed to being a political activist. She felt that, she was a prodigy pianist. She won a national competition for composition. She wrote some really avant-garde stuff. And she thought, with playing piano, she's not going to be able to influence the public at large politically. Whereas she felt once she had Miss 45 and she went around and spoke, and she was able to speak about her philosophies, about the theme in there, she chose to go down the route of acting because of the opportunity to use that as a platform for spreading her politics, making a difference, so to speak, more so than playing piano. I don't know if that's how it worked out for her, but Bad Lieutenant, she put her philosophy in there too. But that was the motivation for going into movie making, was so that she could get her message out. She thought it was a better medium for that.
Why do you think she never, I thought she was really talented, but was it her choice not to do bigger films, or was she offered anything more mainstream, or what's the story there?
No, she to do bigger films. Look, to be blunt, the industry does not like to work with junkies, with heroin addicts. They knew about her. Abel certainly spread the word about her, and the industry tends to keep. She did Larry Cohen. Larry Cohen used her in special effects.
I've never seen that. We have never had that here either.
That's pretty. It's a Larry Cohen film. She plays two roles.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
The first role, she plays a Southern housewife, and she wasn't able to effect a plausible drawl. So her first character has the voice dubbed in by a Southerner, but then the second role is a doppelganger for the first one, who's a New York girl. So they used her voice because she had a New York accent. But she plays both roles pretty convincingly. The big roles, I don't know, big. She got some. She concentrated more on her writing, I think, too. She was really she was writing more scripts. I have several unproduced screenplays and treatments, and she was trying to get those things off the ground.
Did she enjoy doing special effects, like working with Larry Cohen and whatnot?
Yeah, that was a year before I met her, but yeah, apparently, and I think she even had a brief departure, what you say, a little dalliance with her leading man in there. Yeah, there was apparently some hanky-panky going on behind the set, the husband who chases her down in special effects. I think they had a little fooling around. She mentioned, we went to see, it was a Larry Cohen retrospective at the Joseph Papp Theater in New York. And so we saw special effects together on the big screen. Yeah, and she relayed a couple of little anecdotes of her fooling around with the guy there. So apparently she enjoyed, and she worked with Eric Bogosian.
Yes.
Eric Bogosian got the privilege of strangling her and bathing her nude body in his pool to wash the blood off.
Did
So,
she?
you might want to see that film. Yeah.
I would love to see that film. I noticed some screenshots in it. She does nudity in it. Did she ever have any problems doing nudity?
No, she was fine with nudity. I mean, it opens up with her. I guess some of the stills on the website, you see, she's standing. It opens up where she's a housewife from Arkansas, runaway. She's in New York. She got a job. They have a replica of the Oval Office, and she's standing on the turntable, supposed to be on the president's desk. And people pay $10 to come in and take pictures of this. And so the room is full of photographers. And she's standing up there, with a top hat and spinning around. Yeah, no, she was fine with nudity.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Bad Lieutenant. Now, I remember when I rented Bad Lieutenant, I rented it just to see her and hear her speak. And I'm going to tell you, I liked her before. I thought she was a beautiful brunette, but man, I thought she was a gorgeous redhead.
Oh, yeah. And that speech, the so-called vampire speech, I met guys. I was in a bar in New York, like 10, 12 years ago, and I met somebody that they would play the vampire speech. They would play it on late night radio in L.A. There was a radio station that played it sometimes, where she goes, she does herself, she shoots up, and then she starts with, vampires have it easy. They get to feed on others. We have to feed on ourselves. We have to eat and eat until there's nothing left but appetite, So, and this was, okay, here it comes. But, so that scene where Harvey goes, the lieutenant goes to visit his dope connection, the skinny redhead, that was shot up in the Mayflower Hotel up here near Columbus Circle in New York. And I went there, I went to the shoot. I wanted to go see this. So I was there. And, she basically taught Harvey Keitel how to act stoned. He had never done heroin, but she taught him how to do that, the light finger scratching across the face, all the little signs of heroin high. So she got him to do that, and she was shooting him with some kind of saline. And then it came time to do her shot, and she said, no way, I'm putting that stuff in my veins. So I slipped her a couple of real bags. I was there, so I gave her a couple of real bags to shoot. So when you see her shooting on Bad Lieutenant, that's the real stuff she's putting in. And when she does that vampires have it easy speech, that's the real deal. That's the nod coming on. That's what I witnessed thousands of times. So, seeing her do that right on the screen, that's cinema verite, so to speak.
Yeah, I could have done without a naked Harvey Keitel, though.
Oh, that one. The funny thing about Harvey on that film, and this is a testament to his acting, he was in bad shape. During that shooting, Harvey learned that his wife had run off with Edward James Olmos.
Oh.
And I believe this upset the man tremendously, okay? It was not a agreed upon arrangement. So he was rather distraught. There was that time, I guess the scene you referred to, he's jumping up and down crying, and there's these two girls fooling around on the bed.
Yeah.
And off screen, Zoe was directing them. She told me about that day when she came home. What a wonderful day. These two girls, and Zoe's off to the side telling them what to do, basically directing their sensual motions on the bed. Harvey was supposed to be on the bed with them, and he couldn't handle women. He couldn't go near them. He'd say, so he basically took his real world distress, and he just applied it to the lieutenant character, Lieutenant was so screwed up anyway that, fine, take Harvey's misery and inject it into Lieutenant, and then we have a lieutenant who's standing there crying naked, It was great flexibility and spontaneity on the part of Abel and Harvey working together. That, fine, you're screwed up, fine, your character's screwed up, go with it, It worked. And he got a really intense performance out of him, and that was a lot of real guts he was throwing into it, applying it to the role.
So she more or less directed those two women tying each other up on the bed, huh?
And, I was at home, and she came home and told me about the day of shooting of these girls and all the things she had to do. And that, yeah, right.
Kinky.
I'm sorry, I didn't witness that one, but yeah.
She should have got in on that.
Well, oh God, do I go into this? Somewhere, both her and Edward independently told me these stories. When they both tell me the same story, I have a feeling it might be true. But back in the 80s, they used to go around the club scene a lot. And they would go to a bar, and he would notice a young woman at the bar, and he'd tell Zoe, and Zoe would go over and entice this woman to come back to the loft with her and Edward.
Okay.
So the three of them would go back to the loft, and Edward would have Zoe, and this woman would do various sensual things on a bed, and Edward would film them. All right? So,
okay.
Now, there's all this film. When Edward lost she moved out, Edward lost the loft. I got 20 boxes of film from his apartment and saved them. All the time we lived together, I had 20 boxes of unproduced films of Edward's. And I never found any film like that. But a few years ago, I found Edward has a son, Eddie DeLauro, in Brooklyn, and I visited him. And he has Edward's old 35 millimeter camera. And he says, yeah, and there's still a roll of film in it. I don't know what it is. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he stopped making films. The last thing in his camera was quite likely these roles he shot at night with Zoe and other women. And it's just, I've got so many things to track down. But at some point, it would be nice to see if I could recover any of that 1980s black and white footage of Zoe and other women acting on a bed while Edward films. Unrecovered artifacts. It's out there somewhere.
Wow. I know
she had experience with that kind of thing, and she applied it on the Bad Lieutenant set with those girls.
Yeah, and you had also the rape of the nun, so you got back to the rape scene again, too, and...
The rape of the nun.
Yeah, remember the nun was raped and...
Oh, do I remember the nun? Yes. And for that scene, Zoe was always on the set, so Abel had sent her out to get the Virgin Mary statue. They needed they didn't want to destroy actual church property, so Zoe went out to a scene, a scenery place, and she got a plaster statue of the Virgin Mary that got knocked over. During the rape, they desecrate the place, and when the shooting was over, Abel said, hey, you could have the Virgin Mary. So she took it home. And so we had that Virgin Mary standing in our apartment for years. And then, she went to Paris and I left, and Mother put the Virgin Mary in storage. And when I went and recovered Mother's sculpture and family everything from storage a few years ago, there's the Virgin Mary. So I brought the Virgin Mary home. And Virgin Mary, who got knocked over in Bad Lieutenant, is now in an old wooden phone booth on my front porch here in Staten Island. I see her every day. And Bad Lieutenant fans could come and visit and kiss her hand, but that's where she wound up.
Well, I noticed the religious themes are very strong in that film. Did that come from Zoe? Like, did she have any beliefs in the Bible or whatnot?
Not so much biblical. At the time, in the late 80s, early 90s, and concurrently with this, she was working on her main novel. She worked on a lot of short stories, film, screenplays, but the one novel she worked on, she titled it 490.
Okay.
490 being 70 times 7.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard about this, yeah.
The number of times a man should forgive someone who offends him. 70 times 7, Jesus said. So she names her book 490. She was into the theme of forgiveness. So Abel came to her with a story about a bad lieutenant, based on a couple of news stories about a nun who got raped and a bad lieutenant. And he wants to make a story about this somehow, and he had some kind of story, but the whole redemption angle, where Harvey, of course, it's within Zoe's mythology, but what makes the lieutenant finally see the light is at the end, when he doesn't only chase the dragon, but when he gets mainlined, the heroine puts him in a place where he can see the truth, and he has the vision of Christ when he goes to the church.
I love that scene. Yeah.
He realizes he basically dies for this. He gives his life. He gives the boy the money that he could have paid his baseball debt with that money he had. He had enough. With the money in the box and with the reward for the kids, he could have paid his baseball debts. He would have been free. And instead, he gives the boys $20,000 from the cocaine and tells them to get out of town. And he goes off to the meeting place where he gets shot. He basically has some epiphany, and he lays down his life for their sins. And that's how she conceived it. And not everybody gets it, At the end, it's kind of quick and all, but, a lot of people just, oh, yeah, bad lieutenant, real bad, and they just want to see how bad he is and all. But he's bad, but he kind of redeems his soul at the end, So, yeah, she was not a religious person, but somehow that twist in there was pretty insightful, I think.
Tell me, did she get recognized a lot, like approached for autographs and fans? Like, how was that interaction?
Not really. No, autographs. No, nobody. I don't think I ever saw anybody ask her for an autograph. We went out to club scene. The first, I'd say, 3 or 4 years, we were going out a lot, but we were out in the scene, going to dancing and seeing bands and hanging out. I didn't go to film things with her. She went to film festivals. She went to L.A., she went to Portugal. I didn't attend those with her. So in that context, she might have gotten requests for autographs. I don't know. But I don't recall anyone ever asking for an autograph. No, I mean, not like people recognized her on the street or anything.
Well, I've got a story to tell you.
Oh, tell me a story, please.
No. This is a good story. Well, sad in one way. I used to autograph a lot back in the mid '90s. There, I didn't have a computer at the time, so it was nice to get stuff through the mail. And I forget the outfit where I used to call to get addresses or whatnot to send fan mail. And they would, I'd always go after the cult film stars, like I got PJ Souls and heard from her and Janet Leigh, But the last person I requested was Zoe Lund. And I found out that she had passed away, and it was only a few months after she had passed away. Yeah. She was the last autograph that I sought after through the mail.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I felt really bad. I was kind of happy to get that page of her diary you sent me, because it was nice to see her handwriting and whatnot, But yeah, I felt really bad when she had passed, and I felt like I just kind of missed the boat, because
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have gotten an autograph, and I was like, wow, she was gone. And I don't know how far after her death, but I remember it was 1999, so I think
I didn't know for a couple of weeks myself. I was out of town. I was out west. What happened she left in 97. I went to detox. I had a job. So I took a week off from work. I went to detox, came back. So I got more productive at work. No longer did I have to go home after 7 or 8 hours, because I needed my fix, I started working later. I was working at MTV in the digital effects lab, so I was working. I went back to normal life. She went to France. This French guy she was with, they didn't have any income. They got on the amount of methadone that they get. She was on. They prescribed 130 milligrams a day. Now, when I got clean, I had 20 milligrams a day. I can test 20 milligrams a day of methadone is enough to keep you from getting sick, you know. But the state gives people 60, 90. Over there, she was getting 130 milligrams of methadone. And so then she wasn't doing dope. She was doing methadone. And when you do that much methadone, of course, you need to do cocaine or else you can't move because it deadens you so much. So she kind of switched into methadone and cocaine over in France. And but when she would come here, and so what she would do is she would get these bottles of methadone, travel to the United States. She would sell some to me and sell some to other people she knew who needed high-quality Parisian gourmet methadone. It did not require refrigeration, a big plus for people without homes, and it was tasted better. And also she would sell it, and then she would buy as much cocaine as she could and stuff it up inside herself and bring it back to Paris. So we would see each other from time to time over those 2 years. It was never very friendly, you know. My life just ended one day when I was informed she was going to France with him and not coming back. So we used to argue, and all of our stuff was in storage, and she never gave me any money. The last time she came in March '99, she said, "I'm not feeling well. Can you visit me at my mother's house?" And I had had enough. The mother's house was where I discovered her on the floor with the guy, the last place we had lived. I did not want to go to her mother's house. I wanted her to come out. I wanted to come out and take her out again, you know. I was stubborn. She was stubborn. I didn't see her that visit March. She went back to France, and then she died. No. So, and I was out of town. So I was out in Vegas. I got back maybe 2 weeks after she was dead. I'm talking to a mutual friend, and he says, "I'm sorry about Zoe." And I said, "Sorry about what?" And that's how I found out. So I didn't know for a couple of weeks. And people were talking about having a memorial. Richard Hell wanted to do a memorial. He wanted to wait till I got back. So Richard Hell and I kind of collaborated on setting up a memorial thing that happened finally. I guess we did it in September. Just a number of old friends. You know, it was just before the internet, so we missed a lot of people. You know, today it would have been a Facebook event. But we got a good bunch of people from the 80s who knew her, and Edward came and talked. And, I showed a lot of slides, and, you know. So we had a little thing remembering her. Months after. I don't know if you could have made it, but...
Yeah. What was she like to live with when you two were together?
You know, she was very busy. I mean, she was very focused. She had a lot to do, and she was always doing something. She was always writing or making phone calls. She had appointment books full. I got the stack of appointments. You know, I don't know if I'll ever write a book, but I save all this stuff for research, for the book, you know. Everything we ever did is in her appointment books, you know. Yeah, it was... and, of course, the whole thing is, when you're in that life, the number one thing in your life is making sure you stay well. So everything rotates around, everything revolves around having the money to get some dope so that you can do the things you got to do. I didn't want to sit around stoned all the time, but if you're sick, you can't go to work. So you had to have your bag in the morning. Then you could do it, forget about it, and go to work and function and be fine until you needed another one at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, you know. So that kind of, and I hated it. I hated, you know, not being free. Can't just leave town for 2 days. Oh, you got to stock up. You got to have enough money to buy enough drugs to last you 2 days. I went to Las Vegas for 2 weeks for business. I brought enough dope for 2 weeks. Of course I ran out after 12 days because the little monkey says, oh, well, you stretch it. Oh, well, you know, you make excuses to do a little more each day. And then after 12 days, you're out and you got 2 days to go. And you go home, you know, cold turkey on a plane with hundreds of people. It's just such a horrible life, and I hated it so much. And she loved it so much. And, yeah, It was a major problem for us. I often wonder what she could have done if it hadn't been for the heroin, if she had been able to live without that, how much more she could have accomplished, how she would get somebody who wanted to do a script, and so they'd talk about a script, and they're getting ideas going, and then it's closing to me. All right, can you give me $200 advance now, before I do anything? It's like, get out of here, People don't want to hear it, and when you're in that life and you're all consumed with your need and you delude yourself into thinking that people can't tell, you tell yourself it's perfectly normal to ask for $100 cash advance at the end of a preliminary meeting, but it's not, There's a time to get to money and contracts and all that. And addicts tend to have the handout at the first meeting, give me $100, and then the person knows what they're going to deal with and they find someone else. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry that she's gone. I think she was a real talent. And I really thank you, Robert, for coming on here tonight and chatting with us.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this. We're getting right down to our nitty-gritty on the time. I'm going to tell you what, though, when I get this, it's not going to go on the air until this Sunday. That's when I usually do my live show. But I will link this to you. You want me to do it through your email?
Yeah, that would be best. Sure.
Okay.
I'll publicize it if that's all right.
Yes, absolutely. What's that?
Yeah, I'll put it on her Facebook page and send it to friends and all.
Yeah, the only thing I ask is just credit my name to it, But other than that, that's yeah.
Your actual name, both your names, what?
Put Greg and put in quotes Python Hyena. That's my DJ name, and then put Gilbert.
Python Hyena, right? I got Python Hyena.
I love African wildlife, so
great.
Yeah. So yeah, like So yeah, you can put that on there, and I do hope you do a book on this someday. I think it would be great. Sounds like she had pretty interesting yet somewhat dangerous exploits going on. So. Oh
yeah, really. There's so much more, but yeah, fascinating person.
I have one thing though. This is probably too late on this, but there is no chance of me being able to get an autograph of hers now, huh?
Well, geez. There must be one somewhere I could scan and send you, if you want.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send it to you. It's not going to say, greetings, Python, but I'm sure there must be something with a signature on it. Yeah, I've got ID cards and things like that.
Yeah.
Remind me of the email. I'll see what I have.
Well, I wanted to do this tribute for her, and God bless her. I'm sad she's gone, and I really appreciate you coming on here tonight and chatting with us.
Well, it's a pleasure to tell these stories to someone who's interested.
Very, very much.
Thanks.
Yes, and I'll send these to you whenever we get the link done. I'll post it to you, and
great.
Yeah, well, I thank you for coming on here tonight, and God bless. I hope you have a very nice evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. All right, you too.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye.